Welcome to Puck Talk CS. I'm Matthew Mugno alongside Steve Murno. This is year 10 of Puck Talk CS. We're hyped. Check out that video. I know Steve definitely wants to say a word or two. Means a lot if you're returning. If you're just joining us, we're here to enjoy the New York Rangers 2025-26 season. It's the premier season 8 right now. Steve-O, handing it off to you, brother. I was about to say Lamar to Derrick Henry, but maybe that's the wrong analogy.
Not this year.
Jackson Dunk to Cam Scatterbo.
There we go. Much better. There we go. Starting off with a banger. A little bit of sweet. 10 years of Puck Talk. I got to start with two big shout outs. First of all, you, my partner, Matt. It's been amazing. Really no person I'd rather be doing this with. Sharing the mic with for 10 years. And I'd do it for 10 more if I could. So love your brother. Let's keep it going. And secondly, our supporters and listeners. We love you all. Thank you for tuning in, whether you this is your first time listening to us or you've been there since the beginning 10 years ago. We really do appreciate it. So with that being said, to start season 8 of the 10th year of Puck Talk CS, let's talk some puck, baby.
Steve-O, first and foremost, I want to apologize to our listeners. Yeah, I got the cough drop in. I also want to say we weren't as present over the summer from I suffered from migraines, to put it mildly, and Steve knows about all that. So unfortunately, it kind of really took a hit on our growth and our connection to everybody, which I think we've really been in a really good spot the last year or two. So but we're back and better than ever. We're locked for this year and we're looking to grow more. So with that said, this is all about the New York Rangers, right, Steve? We have a story, but so do the Rangers, and that's what we're really here to cover for the last 10 years. And let's start with how this play is just not indicative of the shutouts at home. They set that record. I have a really funny tidbit. Everyone was talking last night online about the Pittsburgh Pirates, the defunct Pittsburgh team from 1928. The Lester Patrick game where he went in goal and helped the Rangers win the Stanley Cup in 1928. The head coach of the Pittsburgh Pirates was in the stands watching the game as a spectator. He came onto the bench and coached the team to the win. Okay? So that's a completely random historical nerd thing from Chives here. But Steve-O, Igor has been locked. The fourth line outchanced Edmonton. I think Zibanejad's looked really good. Overall, what are your takeaways from the fact that they just cannot score at home?
Yeah, man, it's really tough. And I think what makes this more maddening, is just that we in these home games we were the better team, and in most areas of that game, I think if we played like that last year, you would have gotten a much different result. And the fact is, we're just not getting that result. The Caps game, the Oilers game, and listen, it's too early to get fixated on one game. But now that we're going on 3 games, this is going to get sick real fast. And I changed my tune after this Edmonton game because it is hard to sit there and just watch a game like that. And you just can't find the back of the net. I mean, you can sit here and talk about records all you want. But again, my tune was don't get fixated on one game. It's the trends you have to look at, over time. But now we're going on 3 home games without scoring a goal. So that is a little concerning for me. What do you think?
No, I actually agree with you because I actually think how long can you say, okay, well, Panarin's looking good. Oh, well, Zibanejad's looking good. We got to step outside the box and recognize that although that is the trend, and I think the wins will come. I'm looking at this optimistically, like you said. You also say, well, you can't go into Toronto and lose that game. Or, by Saturday, you can't have 2 more losses this week because by game 60, when you needed these wins, because this is a team that I believe can contend for a wild card, if not third in the Metro. That was where our predictions were at the start of the year. You need these wins, right? At least consistently enough that it's a win and a loss. You're mixing them in. We saw that with the 2019-20 team. Now, they were further down the standings. I think by the time COVID happened, they were 7th in the Metro. But they were actually pushing for the wild card because that's how competitive the Metro was. This year, it's a little more open. So, one, that's a benefit to this team that might not have the skill, might not have the talent, but might have enough of that grit. And we've seen that. I like the way they're defending. I like the fact that the fourth line doesn't have this label, this leash, 4 minutes a night. They outchanced Edmonton 6-1. Sam Carrick alone had two high danger chances. That was almost equal to Edmonton's high danger chances all game, which was three. That's also a testament to Igor Shesterkin, 11 and a half, 11 and a half. That's all we heard all summer. And he came through. His numbers, 72 games of less than one goal surrendered since 21-22. He leads the NHL in that category. And he also has a 972 save percentage in his game started. Sub 1 goals against average. Like, there's a lot of positives. But looking forward, I think it's tough to continue that optimism if they lose Thursday or Saturday.
Yeah. Or not even just lose, like we have to score. I mean, yes, we got the chances, and that's great. And yes, like we're gonna sit here and analyze and talk about different players and everything, and it's gonna be a lot of positives. But it gets to a point where you just have to, one night, 2 nights is fine, but 3 nights now. I mean, you gotta score, man. You gotta find a way to get it done. And the funny thing is, the road games are it's like watching a different team, out there against the Sabres and the Penguins. I mean, that is just so funny for me. But again, it's just I had that same message watching these games, and I don't want to get that panic out there. And I say, after watching that Caps game, we're gonna win that game 99% of the time. But then you play a similar game against Edmonton, and you still don't win that game, and it's kind of a head scratcher. I mean, that Caps game, you just ran into the Lindgren, who simply was just unbeatable. But we outshot the Caps. We outchanced the Caps. But then here comes Edmonton comes in, you get the same thing over again, and it's just kind of it's just stale. I was planning to come on here before the Edmonton game, but now I kind of changed my tune because I'm kind of getting a little sick of it. There, it's hard to sit there and watch 3 home games and you still haven't scored a goal. And I think this team. I like the motivation that we've come out with. I think we've played much better than we have last year up to this point. I think again, it's just very small sample size. But you want to see trends develop over time. You don't want to see any inconsistency. And I think winning one game and then coming back and getting shut out, and then winning the next game and then coming back and get shut out. That's not engaging. And these aren't. Edmonton, yes, Edmonton did not play a good game. But even
I
uh,
actually, I'll disagree with you because I think that the Rangers played good defensively, and that's why. Like, I think Edmonton had their chances. The goal they scored on was a fluke off the linesman on a breakaway.
yep.
But I also think that I don't know if you're giving the Rangers Dave Quinn, who's in charge of the defense now, and the defensive core enough credit, considering where they were, like you just said, last year.
Oh yeah, for sure. But what I'm trying to say is that there was an opportunity in this game. I mean, Connor McDavid was neutralized for the entirety of the first period, and I thought we did a great job on that end, but we just couldn't capitalize on that, and that's the difference with this Rangers team. And we could sit there and break up and analyze different players, but when you get down to it, at the end of the day, the core is the core, and the core's got to show up. And when they don't show up, it seems to be the same problem every single year. We're going to talk about one specific player a little bit later on. But to echo your point on Igor, I mean, he is, and this is not a surprise. You listen to our show, I say the same shit every year. Igor, this team is going to go as far as Igor takes them. Even if we don't score goals on nights where it's 0-0, Igor is still going to give us the best chance to win and give us, it could be 0-0 heading into the third. Igor is Igor, and he's been great to start the year. I think that is something that we needed to see from him last year. I don't know what was up in the beginning of last year, just maybe the whole off the ice problems got into his head, and we saw him be a little bit aggressive. Still plays a little bit aggressive, but you can see that he's toned it down a little bit, and I think that that's what this team needs. We are built on Igor, and he's been great to start. Even quick in the one game he played in. Quick was phenomenal, man. He continues to amaze me.
Yeah, 39 years old. Now, here's a stat from David Starman, the new analyst for the radio on MSG for ESPN. This is the third team to play Crosby, Ovechkin, and McDavid in a row. Seattle played them last year in a row, and the Senators played them years ago in a row. Only three teams ever has faced them. None of them scored against the Rangers. So I also think that is a very good sign because I do think the earmark, now I'm throwing it back here, but like those 2012 teams, they were able to shut those guys down. And that was part of their blueprint of success. Ironically, Mike Sullivan was part of that team. But I thought that was important to point out because I think scoring is just as important as neutralizing star talent, especially in the way the game is being played now. And they did that, right? 29. Leon Draisaitl's a Ranger killer. If Jenny Malkin has 73 points in 78 games against the Rangers, the fact these guys aren't scoring, I don't care how old they are, they're Hall of Fame level players. It's important that they're neutralized. Um, and last piece on that, because I know who you want to talk about. 10-3 in high danger last night. Shilovs with 25 saves at the Garden, shutout. Charlie Lindgren had a game. And I got to say, the fact that he's a right catching glove was probably part of that. Skinner with 30 saves. We all know that I drag the Oilers any chance I can. So the fact that I'm really giving them props right now, it's a little pride to swallow here, Steve. But
Yeah.
no, overall, I mean, is every goaltender going to come into the Garden and put on that performance every night? Like, also, I think that's got to break too at some point.
It does, and especially somebody like Sheloffs. Like, yes, when he first came in the league, he took over by storm. But last year, this guy got shelled last year. I mean, so
Mhm.
to see that happening in MSG and Lindgren too, somebody that we've had success with in the past, little shocking. I another thing that I noticed that I think let's maybe I was a little negative. Let's go on the positive side. I think face-offs are so big, and I think that is one thing that I've seen from this team this year. I think in the road games and even in the Edmonton game and the Caps game where we got quality chances, I think, we played with a ton of energy and we were able to compete at a high level when we win faceoffs. When we hunt down pucks and we could win and scrap the battle out in the corner and we can maintain that momentum. I think all of that starts off winning the faceoffs. And I think a big reason in some of the reason, in that Pittsburgh game, the Sabres game, a lot of the reasons we had success was that we were really dominating in the faceoff circle. I think when you win faceoffs, that sets you up in a major advantage. And I think what's promising is that we are doing it without our best. Vinny T not out there, and I think
Well, first of all, let's not make this big.
in the faceoffs, I think he was over 80%. Sam Carrick, how about that? He's been over 80% as well this year in faceoffs, and I think consistently win faceoffs in all three zones. And I think you won't really chase the game nearly as much. And I think you've seen even in these games that we haven't been scoring. We haven't been chasing any of these games, and that's because we've been winning faceoffs, and I hope that continues. I think that is something that I've noticed that I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about. But last year, I mean, we couldn't get a faceoff for our life, and that's we were chasing the game. It was putting much pressure on the defense. So that's something that I think we need to maintain to start this year.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, right? Like how important face-offs are, right? You win the battle in the dot on the boards and below the goal line. Like that's a Chris Nealon quote. That's where the game's won. And I think the way the Florida Panthers have influenced the NHL, that's something that Chris Drury clearly took note of. And even in that series now 2 years ago, that was a major factor too, was like losing faceoffs and getting put on your heels constantly, not the situation you want to be in. Now, we talked about star power, we talked about scoring. I think the one unique aspect of this team is that they've built this team that can grind. We clearly have seen at least, I would say, three lines with an identity. One of them supposed to be your scoring line. We lost the center of that to LTIR. Alexi Lafreniere's looked good in my book. But Artemi Panarin, there's a lot of conversation now because Kaprizov was signed, McDavid was signed. Does he now become the free agent that the Rangers can sign to move the needle per se again? Is he at the end of his rope here? Because I think he's a player that's this is going to be his last contract. He's not settling for team discount like we've seen so many star players do. McDavid. So, Steve-O, I think to bring it back down to earth, are you gonna be? Are you down on Artemi Panarin, or do you just see this as a slow start for the point producer? 89 points last year, obviously the second best single season since 2000, the year before.
Yeah, I'll be like straight up honest with you because I've been seeing this a lot, trending online. Like everyone's talking about this. I think it's very clear that the Rangers are very comfortable waiting to see how the season goes. You know, if they either fall short in making the playoffs or if they're a team that's not very competitive, I think you might see them let him walk. You know, I think Jury has not. Jury has shown that he's not afraid to make that move. I think both sides are going to take a wait and see approach this season. And if you really look at it, can you really, I'm split. I'm really split. If you ask me
Okay.
personally, I want to see him
I
resign.
am asking you personally.
I, I want to see him resigned. I want to see him resigned because this. I mean, he's been the best free agent signing I think in New York Rangers history, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think the Rangers really won't have that many options to add a similar player in Panarin. I mean, Panarin, if he leaves, that's a huge hole. You know, they'll have plenty of room to add a solid forward. But I mean, for a top six that also addresses the rest of the forward group, yeah, I think that's going to be an issue. And I think, whether they keep open cap space by allowing their prospects to push, or it's tough. But also at the same time, you look at the results that Panarin is giving in the playoffs, and he's not this year's Aaron Judge, but he's been the Aaron Judge of the playoffs from 2020 to 2023. And I think you keep rolling the same thing out. If it doesn't work this year, I mean, enough is enough. It's time to move on. But again, during the regular season, it's just we know what Panarin is, and you're right. The contract just might not be. Again, if the Rangers don't make the playoffs this year, I don't think that contract is going to help the franchise out long term. So I want to keep him personally, but I playing devil's advocate. You have to wait and see right now. Where are you landing in all this? I'm curious. I think you're gonna say. I think you're gonna say that. Do you want to hear what I think you're gonna say?
Go for it. Take the words out of my mouth.
I think you're gonna say it's time for Panarin to. It's time to move on from Panarin.
No, this one, it's funny. Use the word "you're right" before, and I don't like that anymore because I think that this is a situation that I don't know if there's a right or wrong, right? I believe that Chris Kreider would not be producing the way he is in New York, that he is in Anaheim. I think part of that is he's part of a new organization. He feels a little more free. He was not happy with New York when he left. And yes, would he have been healthy? Yeah. And could they have given that an opportunity? Yes. So I also see that as a split, right? I think the Panarin situation is unique because I think what you said, which I agree with, is that you probably don't have a player like that on the market. Eichel signed, McDavid signed, Kaprizov signed like that in an instant. But you signed Igor Shesterkin. Igor Shesterkin, as you said, he's driving the bus. They're going as far as he is. They're not going as far as Artemi Panarin is. And that's established at this point, right?
Yep.
The team in 22 went as far as Shesterkin took them, and the combination of Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad, okay? I think that it's not ideal to not know who's driving the bus in the scoring department in the playoffs, but I don't think starting the season off slow helps his case at all to demand 11.9 or more. And I think that's where I'm concerned because you're already looking, saying, all right, we're 5 games in. By the time it's the end of that November Seattle, apologies, folks, Western Canada road trip that includes Seattle, that's a huge chunk of the season, right? They swept that in 23-24, and that's what really got them to that President's Trophy run. I feel like it's going to click, but we've seen that he doesn't drive the bus. I'm also feeling a little bit of the Juan Soto vibes where it's like, he is this good, but is your money better spent elsewhere? So listen, it's not something you and I are going to figure out right now. But at the end of the day, those are my 2 cents. I think I'd like to just paint as broad of a picture as possible because this is going to be a conversation throughout the year. I think it's a slow start. We call it a slow start. I don't think Artemi Panarin is going to put up 60 points this year. I think he's going to get to 80, that range. But at the end of the day, does 80 points quantify or qualify the same contract he has or more at age 33?
Yep. And a decision is going to have to be made pretty soon because in a couple months when the trade deadline rolls around, letting him walk means you're not getting any assets for a player of that caliber, which really is not ideal, especially in a situation where the Rangers are literally in the crossroad of leaning towards, blowing this team up and rebuilding or, trying to compete. And, in a season where you bring in JT Miller, you bring in Gabrikov in the offseason, it's very clear the Rangers are trying to compete. So I think it would be very interesting and a very bold decision to let arguably their best free agent signing in history and probably their best player become a free agent with nothing in return. And I think I think they're not afraid to make that decision. And it's going to come down, their jury will make a decision before the trade deadline. I just think it depends on results. We have to wait and see right now. I've seen people online with a whole bunch of different takes, and I think you have to let it sit and see how Panarin responds. We know the year that he had 2 years ago. We know the type of player he is. But then you look at the postseason, you say, you know what? It's really not been there. And you look at even that Game 7 goal against Pittsburgh in 2022. I mean, he did not have a good series in that. He scored the game-winning goal there in that series, but he still didn't have a good series. And after that playoffs, after that series, he did not. So it's something that you're gonna have to let and see, and it's just an interesting question. But for me personally, I love Brad. He's my favorite player. I don't want to see him go, but they've shown us that they are not afraid to get rid of our favorite players, aka Kreider. So we'll see.
Yeah, and at times that can be a detriment, but also remember, folks, when he has a 3-point night and an overtime goal, that doesn't automatically mean sign him.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think you have to take what he is. He's going to get you to the playoffs, but I think Igor's the guy that's going to carry you in the playoffs. He's a luxury to have, but is that luxury at the cost of not producing those totals in the postseason? So yeah, obviously a big conversation, Steve-O, but it's a small sample size. I think some things point a little bit more at times. Like the reason we're talking about these detailed plays or details on defense is because that's coaching that's going to last hopefully all year, but it should. Whereas the concerns on the power play and Panarin's slow start, are those a flash in the pan, or are those going to be how the rest of the season goes? I think you and I are a little bit more, maybe not pessimistic, but neutral about those things because last year you and I had stated on many occasions, many episodes, that it'll happen, right? It'll click. And then it just didn't. Different group, different year. Anything else on Panarin's slow start?
Yeah, when you take a look at it, it is devil's advocate. Gotta look at it fairly. It is risky to invest heavily in an aging star, and they could let him depart and attempt to get younger. But again, that decision has to be made at the trade deadline. You have to see where the year plays out. Again, if you looked online, you've seen our predictions. I have the Rangers finishing third in the Metro. You have them in the first wild card. This is a team that's built to compete, and I think based off of that, I think you're going to see him on this team for the whole year. Even if he's not re-signed or if they let him walk, I think he's going to stay on the team all year. And I think he's got the same agent as Kaprizov, so that he's going to want a big contract. And I think it all depends what's in the future for this team. I don't know. Who knows what the future has?
No crystal balls here for Puck Talk. No crystal. Even at times we've had like one or two predictions, but Steve-O's take on Detroit. I'm gonna hold over your head forever. The Detroit making the playoffs in 23.
Yeah, I was pretty confident about that. No crystal
You were
balls.
confident in the Eisner plan.
Even after 10 years of puck talk, no crystal balls.
All right. So next up, I just want to talk about JT Miller's leadership for a second. I accidentally played this
Game
before
5.
over Steve-O, but
A lot to like about our game. It's a unique situation, but let's not blow this out of proportion here.
I love that. Let's not blow this out of proportion. I'll be honest. I had the chance to interview Jacob Trouba on a few occasions. Now, I thought, and this is no knock on the Rangers staff. I think we know as an organization they're a little more locked down, and I actually understand why. But Jacob Trouba felt like the locker room's leader, but I felt that his media presence wasn't very strong. I felt that he was kind of, for lack of better terms, a pawn that at times would emerge when he needed to. It didn't feel like he was always going to be the person answering questions. Now, obviously, the team's losing right now, so maybe that's why we're seeing more of JT Miller. But the fact that he starts off, I know it's a really small thing, but the fact that he's starting off with literally their t-shirt this year, like no bullshit, I loved, because I feel like it's been honestly like quite some time since the leaders had a leader with bite. And I think he is exactly as advertised, albeit he's hindered by the minor injury. I think he's dragging this team into the fight, and I love that.
Yeah, I love him for that too. I think when we went out and got him, you knew what type of player you were getting in here, captain or no captain. You knew that mentality you were getting, and I think I every answer he's had with the media, I've been so super impressed for. You know me, he's JT's a dog. I love him, and I think what I liked about him specifically the other night in the Edmonton game, I really like how he's been a catalyst on the line with Will Cooley and Sherry. I think they did a great job with Connor McDavid all night long, really neutralizing the best player in the whole game. I don't even think he had a shot in the first period. I think Miller was physical against McDavid. He really took his ice time away and space. McDavid did not have any space at all throughout that course of
Yeah,
the
they
game.
were the matchup, right?
Yep, they were the matchup. But in the McDavid came alive in the third period. But I mean, you take a look at the first, 45 plus minutes of the game. I mean, McDavid really didn't have the space to do much, and I thought JT Miller was a big part of that. And I think, the Oilers loaded up big time with McDavid and just Draisaitl on the same line. They had to switch midway through the game with a lineup change and to break them up, and I think that was a great job. I think JT Miller did a fantastic job on that, and I think that's what I want to see from him throughout the course of the entire year, as well as leading the team and just being a confident voice in the locker room. So that the other night impressed me.
He's 32 now. Think about how polished he is returning, right? The 100-point seasons were very intriguing, obviously, when he returned to New York, and obviously his physical play. We knew the situation with Pedersen. I think that still divides the massive hockey community today. Everybody knows about that from last year. Um, and I think everybody kind of has a stance on where they stand. Overall, like you said, when it comes to matchups, something that young centers have a hard time with when they're forced into bigger roles. So not like Noah Laba's not in this conversation, right? Noah Laba's playing third line centers. He might get a second line center. Maybe there's a matchup, but it doesn't seem like this third line is being used as a matchup line like Broussard's was at many times early on in New York. They'll tell you, holy smokes, I just couldn't keep up. You go from Dylan Larkin to Connor McDavid to Nick Backstrom, say this a few years ago. You're playing those three guys every night, or Mark Scheifele, and then you're going against Miller, and then you're going against that wears on a young guy because he might have the potential and the talent, but it's all those fine details that those veterans are really good with, controlling the 200-foot game. And that's what I do like about him. I like that you pointed that out because the Rangers have an established 1C, right? There's no more question mark.
Yep.
Although I'm impressed with Zibanejad at the wing and for his role at center at times right now. Um, I am very pleased to see that even though Miller is kind of hindered by this minor injury, that he's still playing like the New York Rangers #1 center. And he's played against top centers 3 nights in a row, like top of the league centers. So yeah, that's a good point, Steve.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is because we haven't gotten a performance like this from a 1C in the last 2 years. So we cannot take this for granted. Like this is like the best present you could get coming down in Christmas morning. So definitely not take that for granted. How about another player before we pivot conversations that I've been impressed with? Adam Fox. I'll say Adam Fox, I think, has had a great start to the year. I think he looks like, man, I don't want to say it because then, things get changed so fast. But he looks like his old self. And I think this is exactly what this team needs. You talk about core, Adam Fox is part of that core. He's the only defenseman that's part of that core. And I think, he's had 3 goals now to open the season. You know how many goals how many games it took him to hit 3 goals last year. It took him over 50
48.
games. 48. Yeah.
It took him 42 games just to get 1 last year.
Yeah, and he has 3 now to start the year. So that is very promising. I think he's gotten plenty of help from his teammates, which I think is pretty important. Looking at the Penguins game on the road, I think both of his goals came from screening Sheloffs, and I think that's something that we need to get back to. That's New York Rangers hockey. How do you fill that void without Chris Kreider? Yeah, even though Kreider didn't really do that last year, he's still we say it all the time, best in front net presence in the entire league. That's something that I think has always been a strength of this New York Rangers team when we were growing up. So I'm happy to kind of see us get back to that. And we need to see a little bit more of that. But Adam Fox, I think, has been very, very positive. We got to keep him healthy. So big positive for me. Any thoughts on Adam Fox, or do you have somebody that you think that you've been very surprised with?
Okay. Surprises? I wouldn't say surprised. I knew Igor was going to bounce back. He might have surprised folks and honestly flex on them as he should. Mika Zibanejad, again, not in like I know none of those pucks have gone in, but this is a different player than we saw last year. Yeah, Foxy, and I think I was very critical of him towards the end of the year, so I'll give him the flowers there. You know what it is about Fox too, Steve? It's the production, which he needs equally offensive production, but as much as he needs to simplify his game in the D zone and return to just that cerebral play that we know he is capable of. I love it. How many times is he just a first pass out of the zone where it's not like he has a partner that's supporting him too. I think Gavrikov hasn't surprised me. I'm actually not blown away by him, but he's done very small things that have helped Fox, and Fox has been noticeably better. And the last guy, I would actually tip my cap to the 4th line overall, but Sam Carrick, when he came in as a free agent, I guess 2 summers ago now, I was questioning the move. And I think last year, yes, he established himself, but a guy like that, you think, all right, he's on this 3-year deal. Was that his best year on the 3-year deal? It's not. I mean, I think the game against Edmonton proved that he's driving that line and they can play like 14 minutes a night, especially for the fact that that 3rd line doesn't have an identity. Lastly, we can't ignore Noah Laba. This is a kid that played his last college hockey game on March 16th, 2025 for Colorado College, was eliminated, played about a dozen games in the AHL, so went from college to pro hockey. Now he's in the NHL, made the team out of camp. Again, one of those Will Cooley-esque surprises, drafted 111th overall in his respective draft class. He's big. He uses his size. He reminds me of this combination of like young Kreider, young Phil Heedle, like speed, transition game guy. He's got a big frame. I like it. He's got his first 2 career assists. Unfortunately, I think the 3rd line suffering the most from an identity standpoint and from some of the injuries that have occurred. But I think he is the centerpiece of it, which is very good for the New York Rangers moving forward, considering the organization just doesn't have centers in it.
Yeah, I think he's played a very physical game, which I like to start the year. I think he's kind of been impressing. A little bit of a small sample size, but he doesn't seem to get rattled if he makes a mistake, and I think that is something that I like. I think that's something that he can learn from, and I'm interested to seeing where things progress with him. Back to Mika. Um, how you mentioned how he's been not surprising, but a little bit of a positive to start the year. Just to build off of that, like with him, is that the expectation though? Like even though he's not finding results, like it's like yeah, he's playing good. Like I just think because I do agree with you. Like yes, like to start the year, he's not looked bad. Like I think he's had good opportunities. He's looked much more poised than he has in the previous seasons. But it comes to the point where it's New York. You got to show we need those results, and I think just phrasing it like that is setting up the expectation like that's okay. And I know you agree with me 100%. It's just something that he's gonna have. We need to see him start hitting the back of the net. We just have to see it.
I said to my family, Steve, I like that you brought that up because you just know me so well. Mika Zibanejad, I think it would genuinely take him like an 80-plus point season to win back 100% the fan base. And I think that goes to show you that reputation is everything. And you can lose that in a second. He has played 9 seasons on Broadway. He went from the young player at 24 that became the second line center. He scored an overtime goal in that Montreal Canadiens series. We were really impressed with the return from Derek Brassard. He then got to a point where over those years, through the rebuild, and then leading us out of the rebuild, 41 goal season, 91 point season, then it all fell off. He went from 72 to 62 back to back. A President's Trophy year that we were kind of able to ignore that. A lackluster postseason after what he showed us in 22, which was truly incredible. The 10 goal, 22 point, 22 playoff year. And I think it goes to show you how not only we know how critical New York is, but how instantly that credibility can change. The perspective on a player can change league-wide and in the city they play in. So, yeah, Steve, I really like that you brought that up, man, because I'm throwing it to you. I think most people will be content that their $8.5 million pseudo 1C is performing well. But again, at what point does he's turned it around? But at what point does playing well then turn into like, we need result now? We need you to really drive things. I think it's coming. I think the shoe's falling I think it's really falling his way right now, but maybe not on the score sheet, obviously. But I do think that it's gonna take a lot for him to earn back maybe the term is love from the fan base. And maybe the term for the media pundits like us and the rest of the league. I think it might take a lot to regain that perspective or that reputation.
Yeah, I think just that's why I brought it up. And there's no arguing that we are a much better hockey team when Mika is fully engaged and he's playing with confidence. But what version of this of him? This is Mika is the player in all the NHL that desperately needs a bounce back season, right? Don't you think? Like, can you think of another player off the top of your head that would need?
Jonathan Huberdeau.
Yeah, but Mika still screams. Huberdeau's been dead for a few years now. I mean, ever since the trade. But I mean, Mika is just
true.
You can make
that was also like the trade clearly affected that for Huberdeau. Like whatever it is.
Yeah,
I do agree with you. Like this is a player that's been on this team.
Yeah, and I think New York just ate him up. Like last year did such a number on him. And I think that is really what did him in. I think, again, small sample size this year, but I mean, 1 week into the regular season, and he has been one of the most notable forwards, but there's just no results. I'm not sure how many. I would have to look up his specific stats of how many shots he's had, but I mean, what does he have? 1 or 2 points. I, I don't have the stats in front of me, but again,
Yeah,
we need results
I'll
from
go, I'll
him.
go for exact here, but let's see what he's cooking right now.
He
I
we
mean,
we
obviously no goals.
Yeah, and how about this? I would be okay
Actually, yeah,
with
he did score. He scored against Pittsburgh. Sorry, folks. Wasn't able to watch that game, so totally didn't catch that. Yeah, he has 1 goal, no assists actually. So he is one of the 8 unique goal scorers on the team, but it really came in like 2 games, the Buffalo and Pittsburgh game.
yeah, I would be. How about this? Until he finds his footing, and that's not even guaranteed. He might not even find his footing. I'm okay with Zibanejad finding ways to create offensive opportunities, consistently, whether he's playing alongside JT Miller or he's playing alongside Loff and Panarin. I am okay with him, looking better, but again, it's just not going to fare him long term if we don't see results. I think you will see him bite the dust if we don't see results this year. And again, this team is so much better when he's on the ball, and it's just more competitive. And I think when he's not on, I mean, it's a much more deeper layer for players like Panarin and Loft, to step up. And when Vinny comes back, we want to alleviate that. And when you get players like Adam Fox in there, Mika playing in there, and they're playing to their potential that they did, or we get seasons like we got from them 3 years ago. This is going to be a hard New York Rangers team to beat with Igor and net, and you're just not seeing that to start the year so far. Again, yeah, Mika looks great, but I'm thinking long term here. We need to see some results.
Results are everything, I think, for everyone up and down the lineup. Yeah, it's obviously a next man up situation, which is unfortunate. Like Susi IR, Trocheck long-term IR, which means he won't be returning until the beginning of November. That's a long stretch without your 2C in a lineup that, although I always say this, hockey's not a sport that you can lose many players and just like magically succeed or call guys up. I know there are deeper organizations than the Rangers, but like, if any team is suffering these injuries, they're probably thinking the same exact thing.
Yep.
You lost potentially Borgen to a lower body injury, so they called up Morrow, and Miller and Panarin were banged up before the season. So it's unfortunate because I also think in 2 ways. So much is working against this team at the moment where it's like they're so close to really breaking out, I think, but also like I think just as easily it's a tightrope 100 feet over the canyon. Like they're close to getting to the end and really breaking through. But at the same time, you know, how long before missing Trocheck negatively impacts you? I think a few more losses and you lose that confidence and that mojo. I think it's also a like a checkpoint in a video game where it gives you like energy or some crap. Where if you win games without these guys, I think that's also what boosted the President's Trophy winning team in 24. They were missing Fox. Brodzinski drew into the lineup because Kako was out and Hedel was out. Like they were missing 3 key guys to that lineup. And they not only survived, they kind of like spat it back in the NHL's face. So, yeah, next man up, Steve-O. I mean, I don't think there's too many profound thoughts to have about that, but are you worried about this situation? Obviously, it's in no one's control.
Right now I would say no, I'm not. This is a roster move with Morrow that you had to make. By placing Trocheck on LTIR, you get the cap space that you need in order to call him up. I think he's probably going to make his debut tomorrow. Regardless of the status of Borgen, he might likely replace Vakanainen. Vakanainen has struggled to start the season, in my
Your boy.
opinion. he's my boy, and but it does not surprise me at all. He only played what less than 13 minutes against Edmonton. Nearly fewer minutes than the next lowest defenseman on the team. So it's been tough for him. Why not? You have to do it. But I also, circling back to your point, with confidence, I think this team is more equipped to handle that than last year's team was. When last year's team lost the confidence, everything spiraled and went down in control, and you saw it.
Almost like bend not break, right?
Exactly. And I think this year, this next month, these games, I'm watching like these are playoff games. I told you this the other day. I want to stack wins to start the year because that puts you in such a good position. You look at the Devils. I don't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, where they had that historic start and they had a terrible end to the season. But they just won so many games. Like they put themselves in a good position to make the playoffs.
That November 2022, they went 11-0-2.
Yep. And I think this is the time now to establish and get those wins. And I think everybody in the Metro right now is tied. So this is the time to really stack wins. You look at the schedule coming up. You got 2 road games. You got Toronto and Montreal. We've played well against Toronto.
Good games, good hockey games too.
But
if the Rangers play like they have, those will be great hockey games.
They should, and we've played better to start. We've always been a great road team. I don't know what the hell it is with home in Madison Square Garden. It's almost like there's a jinx going to Madison Square Garden every single game, making the Rangers lose. But Montreal always plays us tough. They're always a tough team. And then you got Minnesota and San Jose back at home before going on the Canada road trip. So this is a really crucial month. Even though we're not playing the Islanders or the Devils or Carolina, you still want to put yourself in a situation where you're stacking wins, you're stacking points. That way, when you play them, later on, you lose, you put yourself in a better position. And I think that plays to the point on confidence. I want to get your take, coming up on the next month, or not month next month, to end the month, the next few weeks. Playing two tough road games in Toronto and Montreal, and coming back home and playing the Wild and San Jose. San Jose has played us tough, last year too. They're no easy defeat. So I want to hear from you. Like, what are your takeaways in this team in order for us to keep that level of confidence?
It's the NHL. I'm a believer that any team on any given night, any given Sunday can beat you, right? Like we've seen it time and time again.
Yep.
Steve Alkett said in the post game too, like there are games. I think Laz has been saying it too, and I'm from the same school. Like there are games that the Rangers we've seen in years past stole that they had no. I mean, there was one game where they had 8 shots on goal against Carolina compared to 40, and they won the game in 2022. Bless you, Steve-O. So I think opponents okay. I think the one thing you can control, and any locker room you walk into, they're going to say we can control our game. And of course, simple, true, keep it simple. This is the big factor for me. A lot of these games are on the road and you're succeeding on the road. Is that a good thing? Maybe. Now, obviously, this is us in our podcast talk. The team isn't thinking like, oh, we're on the road and we're playing on better on the road. But it might be a benefit that this team has their Western Canadian road trip coming up. They have some road games. And they have, I think, 30 plus, like either 30 to 33 home games in the second half of the year. That's also going to be crucial because, like you said, if you can win some of these games on the road, you come home, it's a lot easier for an athlete to wake up in the city they play in. It's a lot easier. Now, granted, some professionals will also tell you there are times where it swings the other way. You're on the hotel, you're on the road, you're with the boys. And it feels like a tighter group, like only we can win our way out of this game when there's 18,000 of the opposing fan base screaming in the stands. But overall, that could be a factor too. So again, I'm not worried. I know where San Jose stands. I know where Minnesota stands as their teams this season. Also a good matchup point to think about with that Minnesota game way down the line, but is that their power play is really good. The Rangers penalty kill is really good. Montreal is going to be the sneaky team. I think that's going to be a big matchup. A lot of emphasis there as their rebuild's really taken off. And Toronto, this is a team that's trying to prove that they can play to that level without Mitch Marner, that the players they've brought in, the younger guys coming up can play as well. The Rangers haven't had it easy out of the gate. They've had injuries, they've had the shutouts at home, and yet I still think they're playing much better hockey. Not even just better hockey, but like marginally better hockey than they did all of last season. So I think that's a good sign. We've kind of talked players, we've talked team, and I'm really excited, obviously, to see where this lands, Steve.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting Montreal's had a great start to the year. What are they, 3-1? They've played well, and they've clearly carried that momentum that they had even making the playoffs last year, which is why I said I just wanted to make the playoffs. And you saw that momentum carried over. And I think it's still a week away, but when we play San Jose, does not have a win up to this point in this epi, but they've played pretty good games. I think they've had 2 or 3 overtime losses where they went to overtime, so they're still being competitive, and they are no easy feat to beat. Last point I have on the episode, I think that is pretty important. I should have mentioned this earlier. Is the fourth line. I think like most teams, you always look for scoring depth, and I think I want to echo that game in that we had in Pittsburgh, where the fourth line showed up, and look how much easier it made that game. I think when you get Sam Carrick's looked good, I think, to start the year. Rempe, Edstrom, I think when the Rangers get more nights like they did from the fourth line in that game against Pittsburgh on the road, I think it's going to throw opponents off their game, and I think it's going to help bring that pressure off the top 6, and they'll play more relaxed. Helps the defense out, helps Igor out, helps everybody out. So that's what I want to see from the fourth line. Tip the hat to them. Any wrapping thoughts on that fourth line?
No, I talked about them before. I love it. I think we've really covered all the bases here. And with the Rangers moving forward now it's like there's no more of that hype buildup from the start of the year. Now it's here. This is why they play the games. Let's see what they're truly made of. I'm almost glad you and I didn't have the opportunity to talk preseason and to start the year, because I do think this wasn't a team that we were going to be able to gauge based on game one. Now, is any team? Not necessarily, but there are most clubs that you're like, all right, San Jose is rebuilding. They might be better than they were, but I think there's just very limited teams every year that have changed so drastically that they're the exciting team to cover. I think one of them is the Anaheim Ducks, not even for the Ranger connections, just in general. But I am happy with maybe not everything that's happened, but certainly a better product on the ice. And I think that's all we could ask for at this point. That it wasn't a continuation of last year, that it's a clean break from 24-25.
Yep. Before I wrap, I have to say it on the record. Like, where I stand on this. Washington is going down this year. I think they're going to have a down year. I know that they've had a nice year, a nice start to the year, and they're up top the Metro, but it's very early, and I expect them to regress. I have to throw that out there. That's Steve-O's hot take of the year. Come back and burn me and when Washington wins the President's Trophy this year, but I think that we're going to see a regress. Before I wrap, any hot takes from you this year?
I don't know, man. I feel like the NHL this year, at least right now, feels like very, maybe not like the same as last year, but I feel like most of the teams are in kind of the same spot. I mean, I think Anaheim definitely pushes for a playoff spot. I'm actually interested to see what Minnesota does. Like, does Kaprizov really get them to another level? I wouldn't say any like sizzling takes. Like, I haven't looked at a team and been like, oh, they're done. So I am really interested to see how Edmonton handles the McDavid contract. Now, not that they're necessarily quote unquote handling it, management side or whatever, but like, does it play out where they finally win the cup, or like what happens with that? And yeah, I don't know. I don't have too many like sizzling takes. I do think Steve Alquette was on Kipper and Bourne for Sportsnet Radio 2 weeks ago, and he mentioned that like Mitch Marner actually wasn't a major influence on Austin Matthews. So I think a lot of the talk about, and he threw numbers out and everything. So obviously I'm throwing that out, shout out Valley. But I don't know. Like, is the conversation of like the Leafs missing Marner, like, does it actually affect Austin Matthews' goal scoring rate? That's one I'm skeptical about. So as in, I 100% see what Valaket's saying. The numbers were there, and like I think that was, I don't know, maybe the word overblown is not the proper word, but I certainly think like Nylander's impact was a little bit overlooked because of the Marner conversation. So, and we know I'm not a huge Willie Styles guy either. So, but I don't know, Steve-O, no sizzling takes. What about you? I know you're big on like one team to not make the playoffs, and you said the Caps.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll not make the playoffs because I think it would be you would have to have a really good year, competitive year from teams like Pittsburgh, which they're off to a hot start. But even if Washington like gets the second wild card, that's still a little bit of a regression in my opinion. I think the only team you said, there's not really a team that's out. I think there's one team that's already out. It's for me, it's the Islanders. What are they, winless in the first week? Yeah, they're gonna have a tough year. The hurricane already came over the island. They're gonna have a tough time.
I think Schaefer looks great.
Yeah, but
I like his story. I think Schaefer's a stud. I really do.
Yeah, but
have you watched him?
I have seen clips. But I just think the situation and what's going on over there, it's just gonna be a really tough. They're gonna have a tough time this year. I mean,
yeah, I agree with you on that.
I think in terms of the Metro, they're gonna have a tough time. It's gonna be interesting to see. What does Columbus give you? Columbus had arguably their best season in recent memory since they eliminated Tampa. Was that in 2019? It's gonna be interesting to see how they keep that momentum. Flyers are such a weird team, bro. They always come out swinging. You're like, oh, this is a new Flyers team, and then they go back to the same crap every single year. So the Flyers are the least scary team in the Metro for me. Yeah, they're tied with the Islanders. Penguins kind of surprised me. They've coming out. They've looked good, and especially in the games that they've played against us. I think Penguins are not a team that I would have had in the playoff conversation. But I think the Penguins to start the year look great. Carolina, they've won every single game they played so far. We knew that was going to happen. Yeah, woohoo, Keandre Miller. I think they're going to be the team to beat this year. Washington, I guess a little regression, and the Devils again. I think it's a little too early to see what we expect from them. I think they're kind of in the same conversation, that we are in right now. So I just broke the Metro down for you. Anything to add on that? What anything I miss?
No, yeah, I think the Devils are going to be like that. Not wild card team, but just the team that I don't really know. Like, do they finish second or do they finish like in a wild card? Or
Yeah,
I think injuries have been a problem. Sorry, folks, I'm really getting worn out tonight. But no, I think the Devils are going to be the team that's like, where do they finish? Because I think Carolina is definitely going to obviously pace themselves to the one spot, but Metro's not as strong as it was the last, number of years, I would say. Maybe a few years ago. But
that's why we got a chance.
Listen, and I thought the Rangers also had a chance last year because it was a weak Metro.
Me too.
Right?
Yep.
And they actually came close considering how poorly they were actually playing on the ice.
Yep. Well, that'll wrap us up. Year 10 is underway with Puck Talk CS. Thanks for listening along here. And always remember, you know how it is. It's just the luck of the puck.